Imagine I'm holding a gavel in my hand. If American Legion oratorical rules allowed for props, I would hold it in my hand for you to actually see. This is no ordinary gavel, but a special one, handcrafted by my great-great-grandpa John in 1948. It was created from a piece of black walnut from the family farm. The occasion was when his wife, my great-great-grandma, was elected to serve as American Legion Auxiliary President. My own grandma received the gavel when she served as Auxiliary President in my hometown. While it currently has a prominent display in Grandma's china hutch, there's a note on the back promising that one day the gavel will belong to me. This gavel is a special family legacy of service. In a broader sense, I use it today as a metaphor for the Constitution, the document that exhibits the leadership that has guided our nation for 238 years. This heavy and historic constitutional gavel represents the document itself, whether wielded in the hand of the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, or of the Speaker pro temp, or the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Our heavy and historic constitutional gavel represents the three branches of government and thus a very delicate and necessary balance of power. Did you know that the gavel is a uniquely American symbol? In every courtroom and at every official gathering, the gavel represents not just authority, but the very foundation of lawmaking and law enforcement through the courts. As American humorist Will Rogers once expressed why two Americans can't meet on the street without one banging a gavel and calling the other to order. Let's metaphorically gavel into four of the most important meetings in American history that have shaped our constitutional principles. The constitutional gavel first came down in an important meeting that served as a prequel to the Constitution itself, when on May 10, 1775, the Second Continental Congress discussed declaring independence after the Revolution had already begun. It would be a little over a year later that the Declaration of Independence would be signed, which is basically a list of grievances against King George. And of course, they gavelled out on July 4th, 1776, when the delegates unanimously agreed to separate from Great Britain. Following the bitter war, it was time to construct a new government, and the second of the great meetings started to draft the Constitution. 55 delegates met on behalf of 12 of the 13 states, Rhode Island the only state to not send a delegate. Originally, the convention had been called to revise the Articles of Confederation, which was seen as too weak to govern the new nation. Ratification was no simple task. There were the anti-federalists, who feared that a powerful national government would suppress state and individual rights. Larger states with more population wanted more representation, and smaller states thought there should be equality. After all, under the previous Articles of Confederation, each state had been allocated the same amount of delegates. In the long summer, in a stuffy room with delegates traveling in and out of the convention hall, the same 55 were never in the same place at the same time. Finally, and perhaps amazingly, a compromise was reached. The new Congress would have a House based on population and a Senate with 2 members from each state. On September 17, 1787, the meeting was adjourned. But that wasn't the end. No sooner when the Constitution was sent to the states for ratification did states fear that a powerful national government would suppress their rights. So back to the drawing board the men in the white wigs went to gavel back in session and draft the Bill of Rights. Have you ever considered the first 5 words of the Bill of Rights? Congress shall make no law. You see, the Bill of Rights was meant to protect the people against government overreach. The Constitution would not have been passed without the Bill of Rights, which is often why it's referred to as the price of ratification. These important rights guarantee freedom of religion, speech, and assembly, the right to bear arms, protection against double jeopardy, and due process. The Bill of Rights was meant to secure individual rights, as well as balance the power between the state and federal government, giving any powers not written in the Constitution to the states. Perhaps the most important of all constitutional debates was to establish the amendment process in the first place. Article 5 is the shortest, but the most important of all, because it allows for our governing document to change as our world advances. The constitutional framers set a high bar for the constitutional amendment process. Although more than 11,000 amendments have been proposed, only 17 have been passed from 1791 to 1992, when the 27th Amendment was added. In the past 33 years, no amendments have been added. Why so few? Remember that a constitutional amendment must be passed by 2/3 vote of Congress and then ratified by 3/4 of the state legislators. A very high bar indeed. Back to the gavel. Have you ever been in a meeting where things got so out of hand that the presiding officer had to bang the gavel multiple times and shout, "Order, order"? In our metaphor, these were times when the constitutional gavel needed to be hit loudly and repeatedly to call our nation back to order. From the moment of our nation's adoption of the Constitution itself, slavery was the monumental crack in the foundation of our nation. This fissure was so deep and wide that it tore our nation apart in the immense constitutional crisis of the Civil War. The nation would only be put back together again through the reconstruction of our Union and the constitutional amendment process through the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which respectively ended slavery, guaranteed due process for all, and secured the individual right to vote regardless of race or servitude. Well, for men at least. Later yet, the constitutional gavel would lay the powerful hammer down once again and give women the same right to vote in 1920 through the 19th Amendment. It took decades of protest and agitation. More than one woman was gavelled down, called out of order, or even thrown into jail for seeking the right to vote. The universal right to vote was earned through change and progression. It is now our universal duty to vote, and not just in federal elections every 4 years. We must vote in every local election, like selecting our school board members, city and county officials. Tragically, there is a poor record of civic engagement amongst these local elections. According to the Center for American Progress, every year there are more than 82,000 school board members elected, making this group America's largest of all elected officials. Yet voter turnout is estimated to be only 5 to 10%. We can and must do better. I can't leave you today without expressing my gratitude to the American Legion for sponsoring this contest. In my own family, I'm the 4th generation to participate. Throughout my family's involvement in American Legion Oratory, there has been immeasurable learning about the Constitution. Throughout my life, whenever I hold my family's black walnut gavel made in 1948, it will remind me of how our founding fathers sought to preserve a nation for generations and created a document that would withstand the test of time. Honoring our Constitution and its principles are exactly the influence of American Legion Oratory. This is the prescription for every American citizen. Study the Constitution. Together, let's watch and see when and if the constitutional gavel will come down, whether yea or nay, on the next order of business for our nation.